and welcome to UPL Insights, a new digital media series from UPL, led by our own teams changing the game for farmers across the African continent. This series will bring together leaders in sustainable farming, food systems, and climate resilience to explore the challenges and developments defining world agriculture today. We are recording this episode ahead of the African Green Revolution Forum, the biggest annual agriculture event for Africa, which is now marking 20 years of Agra's mission to transform agriculture. This year, the AGRF Summit is a virtual event, and we have been talking to some of the people leading that transformation inside and outside of UPL, and exploring our shared commitment to resilience, trade, nourishment, and sustainable productivity. Today, I'm joined by Pedro Pardo, Crop Research Lead on Sorghum and Pearl Millet at Advanta Seeds, the seed division of UPL. Since 2007, Pedro has been heavily involved in some of the world's most advanced research, development, and technology application for the staple crop sorghum. Pedro is currently leading Advanta's R&D breeding work to create and commercialize innovative approaches for sorghum across 5 continents. In this episode, we will be looking at innovation in crop varieties and how new seed technologies are beginning to realize the true potential of the staple crop known as the grain of the 21st century Africa. If you've ever had a pint of Guinness in Nigeria, a bowl of porridge in South Africa, or a plate of couscous in Mali, then you owe it to sorghum. Sorghum is already one of the most important staple food crops in many parts of the world, but increased production in Africa could meet a number of development needs. The challenge for sorghum is that yields vary greatly in the absence of good genetics and effective control of weeds. This is one of the many issues that Advanta and Pedro have been working to overcome, leading to the creation of an innovative non-GMO herbicide-tolerant technology called iGrowth. iGrowth integrates sorghum varieties with genetic tolerance to imidazolinone family of herbicides, which means there is renewed potential for increased sorghum production in Africa. Pedro, welcome to UPL Insights. Can you explain the many uses of the sorghum crop throughout history?
Hi, Floren. Thank you. Yes, as you mentioned, I'm working in R&D at Banta, working with and coordinating all the main efforts of Advanta doing breeding and developing products for the main sorghum production areas around the world. Our main focus is those countries where we have big production areas like USA, Mexico, Australia, some other countries in Latin America like Argentina and Australia and Brazil. And that is my main concern within Advanta, developing not only varieties of or hybrids of sorghum, but also technologies that will help for farmers to be a more stable production and improving the results for them.
Excellent. So we know that sorghum has many uses in the world and in Africa in particular. Can you explain us a bit on these different uses of the sorghum crop?
Yes, the main uses for sorghum around the world is, of course, the animal nutrition or feeding animals. That is in some areas out of Africa. Then we have a very big use of sorghum for human consumption. That is main focused in Africa countries and in India, in some Asian countries. Then of course we have other uses like packaging, fuel production. Fuel production in USA is very important. They are producing a lot of ethanol. This is 1/3 of the production of USA is used for fuel production, ethanol. And we know also that other countries like in India and in Africa, they are using for building houses in the smallholders producers.
That's amazing because we don't so often hear about sorghum production in the world. And I think that Advanta is one of the only major agriculture companies focusing on sorghum. What has driven this decision? Can you explain us a bit?
Yes, Advanta have a decision as a company to be focused in those crops where other big companies are not playing. Big companies are developing and working, seed companies are working and developing products for soybean, corn, rice, wheat. Those are the major crops around the world. But Advanta is very focused in other crops where those companies are not working with, like sorghum, of course, tropical corn, sunflower, pear millet. Those are our focus. We have some efforts, of course, in those big crops, but Advanta have as a strategy to develop not only products, as I mentioned, but also technologies in those kind of crops.
Right. So now we know that one of the main agronomic issues in sorghum is actually weed control. Can you tell us why exactly?
Yes, sorghum was one of the big crops where the science was not developing tools or technologies at the farm level to be dealing with weeds. Wind pressure could vary in a very diverse scenario around the sorghum production area. The yield losses could vary from zero in those farmers that they are managing very well the weeds pressure, but there are some scenarios or some cases where the farmer can be losing 100% of their production because the weed pressure. We know that weeds will compete with the crop for resources like soil, space, water, nutrients. So those are the main factors that will affect the yield losses in the crop, in the sorghum crop. And that was something that was delaying the crop or in the seed companies or in the industry delivering those kind of tools for the farmers.
Right, yeah. So it's actually putting very significant pressure on the sorghum crop, and so you have developed the world's first herbicide-tolerant technology for sorghum seeds. Can you explain the work that led to this innovation, please?
Yes, this was a technology that was developed in Argentina in our breeding program in Argentina. This is the first, as you mentioned, the first tolerance technology in sorghum crop. Um, it is sorghum plants that are resistant to imidazole herbicides. The imidazole herbicides are residual full coverage herbicide, so they can control broad leaves and gramines weeds. This technology is genetic resistant and it is a non-GMO, it's not transgenics resistant or technology that we are using in the sorghum. And it was developed using conventional breeding methods in our breeding program in Argentina. And it is a technology also that is well known. The herbicide is very well known. It's an old herbicide. It's well known from the farmers, so they know how to manage that. And you can find some residuality also in the herbicide in the field that will control grasses in the different stage of growth in the crop.
Okay, so that covers probably the R&D lab side of the development, but I guess at some point you have to bring that technology on the field. So how did you do that? Can you explain us a bit on the field trials that you've conducted?
Yes, of course. Yes, after we discovered that new mutation that is allowing the sorghum to be resistant for this herbicide, we started working, of course, to put this technology in the hand of the farmers. This is our end user. So we started in 2007 developing this technology with conventional breeding trials, field trials. Then, of course, we were working to sequence the gene, which is conferring that tolerance to the sorghum. After we developed the sequence, the complete sequence for the gene that is involved in that herbicide tolerance, we applied for a patent in 2011, a global patent in different countries that are, we are covering this technology with a patent for different, for the main sorghum production areas. This mutation, after we applied for the patent and the patent was granted in some countries, we started working introducing this mutation with the tolerance for different kind of materials, different kind of varieties of sorghum, because we know that each region, each country have an environment, will have different requirement for the varieties. So we are developing, and we are in the way developing varieties for the different countries and production areas. The technology, the first herbicide tolerant sorghum under the brand iGrow was launched in 2017 in Argentina and in Australia. Then other countries in Latin America was we have launched the technology after 2017, and in the current year we have launched that technology in the USA market. Then, of course, we are working with specific varieties, introducing the technology for the African market. In fact, so far we are registering the technology, the chemical and varieties there in Australia. So we will have some very good results, or very good. We have the expectation, but we will have very good results to be introducing that technology also in African countries.
Right, excellent. I was just about to ask you about that, because it's of great interest to us, of course. As you know, sorghum is a key staple food crop for the African continent, where UPL already does a lot of work with smallholder farmers and cooperatives. Some people have actually called it the grain of the 21st century Africa. So I would be very much interested to know more about your ambitions, your plan for this technology to make it available on the continent.
Yes, you know, as I told you in the very beginning, when we applied for the patent in 2011, most of the African countries were included in that application for the patent. But we're still working, developing sorghum hybrids and sorghum varieties for those countries. As we mentioned before, the uses of sorghum in Africa are different and very different for other sorghum production areas. So the hybrids and the varieties must be very specific too. So we're still working, developing those technologies, those varieties, and the technology with those varieties, in order to be ready at that time where we will be launching the technology to the farmers, to be ready with both, with the technology, but also with the varieties and the hybrids that will be adapted for this specific environment, very limited because of water availability and nutrition, soil nutrition, but also adapted to the main uses, which is human consumption. So we had to work in grain quality and also for beverage and other uses that we have in Africa.
Great. So what's the timeline exactly? When can we expect this technology to be available for African farmers? I mean, the technology and the varieties, of course.
Yes, there are two steps here. We have the first one, which is the chemical registration. We are working on that, and we are expecting to have everything ready and registered in 2023. This is the time we are expecting for the final approval for that registration. And then what we are working also in the hybrid registration. We are developing, as I mentioned, hybrids specific developed for Africa with the technology. We are still working on that, and those hybrids we expect to be also registered in 2023. So this is our expectation for commercial launching 2023.
Excellent. Thank you, Pedro. I feel that this could actually be a game changer for growing sorghum in Africa. As you know, we're in a post-COVID situation where most of the countries try to be more resilient and more self-sufficient about food. So how do you think this could help Africa to be more cereal self-sufficient, and what would it take maybe for Africa to become a global sorghum breadbasket?
Yes, this is our goal, right? One of our goal. We as a company, we would like to contribute in that way, in that goal. We know the sorghum is much better adapted for those African environment conditions, like where we have water limitation, nutritional, very small farmers. So we have to think in this kind of things at the time we are developing the varieties and developing technologies. Most of the farmers there are low input farmers, so we have to take it into account. But also we know that in most of the cases, sorghum is maybe one of the main sources for the human consumption of human nutrition. So there are some efforts also in the seed companies, specifically in Advanta. We are starting and in the discovery phase of new projects with better grain quality that will be improving the protein content, the protein digestibility, starch, which is energy for the consumers. We are working also in some things like sorghum biofortificated grain sorghum, which is high zinc and high iron. This is very important, but we have to combine all those things, thinking in those environments and in the end user requirements. So we are working on that. We are in the way. This is our focus, and that will be our minor contribution for that main goal to be African as autosufficient food in food terms.
That's fascinating, really. Thank you so much, Pedro, for sharing with us the history of UPL's work with sorghum and your thoughts on the potential for improved sorghum technologies in an African context. To find out more about UPL's work with sorghum, you can click the link on the description of this video. And you can also subscribe to this channel to follow our full podcast series for the AGRF. Thank you.